It's well known that motorsports is one of the hardest things to make a career out of. When young racing driver John Watt got in touch with me and asked if I wanted to drive his BMW M3 race car, I leapt at the chance. After filming, I had a sit down with him to see just how he got started and what it's really like being a young racing driver in a hotly contested series in the UK.
Hi, my name's John Watt. I'm a racing driver and I'm competing in the Dunlop Brit Car Endurance Championship. Well, I didn't go through the normal route. That would be for these young kids to go into karting or something like that. I actually grew up on a farm, and my dad, when I was about 5, he thought, I'm not going to let him go out on the road as a lunatic 17-year-old and have hundreds of accidents. He's going to learn on the farm. And he bought me a Volvo 740, which he paid £50 for, so you can imagine what that looked like. And I just thrashed that round and round the fields and built up car control and sliding around in the mud. And one day kind of looked at me sliding around and thought, there's potentially a bit of skill there. Let's see where we go with it. So I went down to Brands Hatch and got my ARDS licence as a 15, 16-year-old. It was on my birthday. And then with my ARDS racing licence, I could do track days before I had a road licence. So my first step was to be bombing around tracks like Cadwell Park in an old BMW with a racing licence before I could even drive on the road. The first competition I ended up joining was a championship called the BMW Compact Cup. It was a great little championship, still going, for E36 BMWs, the compact 318 twin cam ones. And we went down to our first race meeting, which was at Donington Park, actually, on the Grand Prix circuit. And it was a total different world. I mean, it made track days. I was so unprepared, it's almost laughable now. I missed qualifying, so didn't go out to qualify and had to practice out of session. So I ended up starting last on the grid, which I was quite disappointed about until when I came round to get gridded up to start the race, and they lined everyone up in their grid slots and the red lights came on. And as the red lights came on, I realised that at no point in my life had I ever done a first gear wheel spinning race start. So I had no idea what to do, so I just dropped it in first, and I didn't have a road licence at this point, sat it on the rev limiter at 7.2 and sidestepped the clutch when the lights went out. Everyone left me behind as I sat in a cloud of tyre smoke and number 11s. But then I worked from 32nd up to 17th, and that was my first ever race. I did 3 more seasons in that championship, the Compact Cup. And as show how competitive it was, it took me a whole year to get into the top 10. It took me another half a season before I took my first pole. And then with final season, we ended up running 3rd in the championship right towards the end. But I couldn't have asked for better racecraft with so many cars so close. You just get so much practice at the overtaking. And then I had a year off and a gap, and then to get the sponsors and the budget together and all that sort of stuff, the boring stuff that happens outside of racing. And then I jumped into this Brit Car Endurance Championship with the M3 we've been filming today. It's a CSL variant, and someone was mad enough to turn that incredibly valuable road car into this beautiful race car. So it's very far removed from a standard BMW M3 road car. We've got, going through it, most of the panels are no longer sort of normal metal. We've got aluminium bonnet, carbon fibre, front wings and splitter, carbon fibre roof, carbon fibre boot. It's roll cage, and then the shell has been cut away, so it's its end of race weight with me in it is 1,150 kilos, which compared to a standard M3 is 1,500 kilos. That means they've got a hell of a lot of weight out of this car, and it's very light. They've then gone through everything else, so it's completely different suspension. We've got rose jointed suspension all round, completely specific race suspension. We've got 3-way adjustable Moton dampers. Then we've got the AP Racing big brake kit, which is actually what a lot of people fit to their normal M3s anyway. With them going through, obviously we've given it more power. You've got to give a race car more power. And this one has got a big carbon airbox, Schrick cams, very far advanced, and it pulls 8,200 RPM, and at that sort of rev range it's putting out 420 brake horsepower. And it doesn't come on cam until 5,000 RPM. So you sit there and it's nothing, 420 brake horsepower, and it shoves you forward. And it sounds fantastic. stuff we've done to the car. We've got obviously slick racing tyres by Dunlop. They're actually not that big. They're only 265 tyres all round, and we're not running a staggered setup or anything. But obviously being a slick racing tyre with no tread, once it's up to temperature, you've got such a big contact patch, it really sticks to the ground, and it allows you to, with that little weight and that much power, really carry some speed through the corners. We've then got a full splitter, flat floor, diffuser and rear wing to give us a good bit of downforce. Not quite a Formula 1 car, but enough. And then we've also got a Drenth 6-speed sequential gearbox. So you can keep flat out all the way down the straight, just bang, bang, bang up through the gears and building speed. A little bit more about the championship we're in this year. We're in what I said is the Dunlop Brick Car Endurance Championship. And this is a really cool championship because it's almost like old-fashioned endurance racing used to be. We have a 50-minute race and we have a 2-hour race. And then the cars are categorised by a series of classes. So you can literally run anything. You've got Class 1 to Class 5. And to show you what that encompasses, in Class 5 at the last meeting, there was a Smart 4.2. And in Class 1, we had a Ferrari 488 GT3 car. So I mean, that gives you the entire, you cannot get a greater disparity of speed on a racetrack than that. And it's done on a points-based system, more power, more points, almost like Gran Turismo. It really is that simple, with the faster cars and the higher classes. And then they all go out and race against each other, and there are prizes within your class, and there are prizes overall, and then your class points all add up to give you the overall championship. So if you won your class every time, even though you might not have won the race, you could win the championship. And I think that works really nicely. So we've just come back from Donington Park. Before that, we're up in Cheshire, Froughton Park, you know, Brands Hatch, Silverstone, all the really good UK circuits. And occasionally throw an international round, you know, Spa, and I think next year they're planning to do Portimao as well, which is just good fun. Who doesn't want to be an international racing driver? You feel famous then. But yeah, so they race nationally across all of those circuits, and that gives you a good mix because different tracks favour different cars, so it always alters the mix of who's at the front. Regarding the championship, we should by all rights be first in the championship, but unfortunately we're currently sitting second because we had an incident with a bunny rabbit. There's no lying about it. Motor racing is incredibly expensive, hands down, ridiculous money. There are places you can go where it's more affordable, but it's only a relative thing. You know, if you want to go into British touring cars or Renault Clios or some of these championships, you know, you're looking at budgets of £250,000 a year. Just totally unaffordable. I can't get anywhere near that. So I'm not there. That's why I'm racing in this Brit Car Championship. Talking about sort of budgets, you know, the Compact Cup I said I was doing previously, you could buy a car for sort of £4,000 and get on the grid for your entry fees and race it on the same set of tyres all year. You know, that's really the cheapest you can do. Moving up to this Brit Car Championship has been a huge step for me. With my work and my sponsors, who have been incredibly wonderful this year, that's made it just about possible. But looking at like the car we've been driving today, which is one of the cheapest cars in the championship, if not, you know, a Ferrari 458 GT3 car is not going to come from the factory in Maranello any cheaper than our old BMW. That's a fact. And this car costs in the region of £50,000 to build. And that's before you race it. You're then looking at entry fees of around £1,500 a meeting, a set of tyres, you need one of those per meeting minimum, and they're £1,500 a set of slicks. So the costs escalate massively. But as I said, obviously I've been lucky enough to get in there this year, and it's gone well. And Brit Car is, again, you know, Brit Car is one of the cheapest GT racing championships. Where I'd love to go after this, I'd love to move into something like British GT. You know, the next rung up the ladder, proper national GT racing, factory teams with Aston Martins, McLarens, all the really good stuff in there. But that's triple the budget again, and every step up the ladder is triple the budget. So you need to get really lucky with sponsorship or have a minted dad, it's that simple. My day job is a mixture between, I'm studying mechanical engineering at university, and then when I'm not doing that, or even when I'm supposed to be doing that, I'm away instructing. So what you can do is, there's good money to be made in teaching other people how to race, in experience days, you know, all this sort of gifts you see to buy, you know, drive a racing car. You always have a good instructor with you, and they sit next to you and make sure you're okay and teach you a bit. And that's kind of what I do as a day job. And between that and the sponsors, that's how I'm able to fund the racing. So I probably need to do another year where I am, and then the next step would be in something like British GT, a top level national GT championship. And then from there, it's into the sort of international GT championships, the sort of blank pan, that kind of thing, before you move into the real top level, you know, World Endurance Championship, your LMP cars. And then finally, obviously, I think the dream of every racing car driver in GT and sports cars is the Le Mans 24 hours. It doesn't get better than that. So obviously the dream of getting to Le Mans can't be done on my own. There's got to be a lot of other steps to get there. And the main bit of that is the budget side of things. It's all about the sponsors and the relationship we have with them. You know, when you've got like the good exposure we're getting today and all this sort of stuff on the side of the car, and you can come and see me at any of the race meetings. You know, we're out all over the country, so it doesn't really matter where you live in the UK, you can come and watch a race meeting. Get yourself to a race meeting, even if you're not interested. You know, my girlfriend's family came to a race. They'd never watched a race in their life and absolutely loved it. Once you're in the pits with the noise and the petrol and the fury of the whole thing going on, you'll never look back. You know, you can get involved for so little, I think, is one of the things that people often look at it and go, oh, I couldn't afford to sponsor a racing car. I love my company's or brand to be on a racing car, but that's going to be £50,000 or something silly. I've heard that John Muppet talking about big numbers earlier. I couldn't afford that. But genuinely, you can get yourself on the side of a racing car for £50 a race and just get involved from there and have a bit of fun. Get some tickets to the races, come along with your mates, get some exposure, and it's just a good laugh for everyone involved.